Hey English 102 online students, welcome to week 10 of our course. I hope all is going well with you. It's hard to believe we have really just about 4 to 5 weeks until the end of the semester. That time has gone by super fast. Now before you know it, we'll be working on our final research papers and coming to the end. But alas, we do have a few more assignments to work on. So last week you started to work on the first draft of your critical response essay, and I'll be looking at those and sending you feedback on those like by Monday, yeah, that's tomorrow, tomorrow or Tuesday at the latest, because you'll be revising that first part and then adding the second part of that to get more feedback on that for next week. So let's just go ahead and take a look at what we've got coming up. I've got our course calendar downloaded here. As we move down to weeks 9 and 10, you'll see that you worked on assignments 6.1 through 6.3 and the first draft of your critical response essay. So like I said, I will be giving you feedback on that in the next couple of days, no later than Tuesday for sure. And then you'll be using that feedback to make revisions to that first part. And you'll still have another chance to make revisions too, because you're going to have a final version that you're going to turn in 2 weeks. But I would strongly recommend making revisions on part 1 this coming week so that you're not so overloaded when you get to the final version. Going into next week, you'll see that we just have 2 assignments, and those are assignments 7.1 and the second part of your critical response essay. Okay, so let's go ahead into our module folders and see where we are with all of that. All right, so into course modules. And we're actually going to start in Module 7. And the reason we're starting in Module 7 is because your first assignment is assignment 7.1. And so we're going to be doing just one small assignment in Module 7, and you're going to be jumping back to Module 6 to turn in the second draft of your critical response essay. Let's go ahead and start by jumping into Module 7. As you'll see, this module is about synthesizing research, and the main assignment you'll be working on in Module 7 is the annotated bibliography. In case you haven't done an annotated bibliography before, it's basically a collection of all the sources that you're planning on using in your final research paper, at least up to this point. You can definitely, even after you submit the research bibliography, you can take sources out, you can add new sources. It's really just kind of a glimpse at where you are up to that point. You're not going to be working on the annotated bibliography itself this week. That's going to come a little bit later. If we look back at the calendar, you'll see that that's coming up in week 12. We're in week 10, so there's going to be another 2 weeks before you turn in the annotated bibliography. Next week, you'll see the only assignment you have is to revise the complete part 1 and part 2 of the critical response essay. So it's coming like week by week. All right, so as we go back into the modules, I'm going to click on Module 7. We'll move down here a little bit. So you'll see our due dates are October 31st for assignment 7.1. The only other assignment you have in this folder is the annotated bibliography itself, which is due Sunday, November 14th. So what's going on with assignment 7.1? It's called Annotated Bibliographies as Research. It's a pretty simple assignment. It's kind of just a preliminary assignment to get you warmed up for the annotated bibliography coming up in a couple of weeks. And as it tells you there, as you've learned, writing an annotated bibliography is an excellent way to put together a list of resources on your research topic and begin to see how they will work together in your final research paper. Okay, they're very useful research tools in and of themselves. So in addition to writing a bibliography, which you will do for your own topic, using them as research tools is also a really great idea. So for this short assignment, do some internet research to find an annotated bibliography in your research topic area. So, for example, if I'm writing about online learning for my final research paper, yes, that is a very broad topic, but we're just using that as an example. I could do a Google search using the keywords online learning annotated bibliography. Okay, you could even make it more specific by adding MLA or APA to your search if you wanted a bibliography in a certain format. You could also look for other types with file extensions like .pdf or .doc. Sometimes that can be helpful to narrow down the search a little bit. So once you find a good bibliography, attach it to this assignment or include a web link to it. In addition to that, make sure that you explain in a few sentences how easy or difficult it was to find a bibliography and whether it might have some useful resources for your own research project. Okay, and if you want to get a sense of what an annotated bibliography looks like and why they're useful to write, you can also go ahead, just to get a preview of this, and look at the guidelines for the annotated bibliography assignment due in a couple of weeks in case you want to get a head start on it. I'll talk about it in next week's video. There is also a template for MLA and APA annotated bibliographies. I think pretty much everybody is going with MLA style in this class, so you can focus your attention on the second attached document there. So it will be a good idea even before you do assignment 7.1 just to take a look through some of those attachments there. The actual links to upload the annotated bibliography, you'll see that there. That's coming up, as I said, a couple of weeks from now. Okay, the other assignment that you have due for this coming week is part 2 of the critical response essay. So now we will go back to Module 6. Let's scroll down there and get to the Module 6 folder. And as you remember, if we look at our flowchart, so you are submitting draft 1 of the critical response essay tonight. That's Sunday, October 24th. And so once I receive those, we move on to step 2, which is getting feedback from your instructor on draft 1. And I will do that between October 25th to 26th. The next part is that you'll make changes to draft part 1 and start working on draft part 2. So that means after you get that feedback on Monday or Tuesday, you can go ahead and start making changes to draft part 1, and you can simultaneously or after getting the feedback start on draft part 2. And then this is what's due next week. You'll add a response or evaluation of your article to the introduction and summary in part 1, and that's due Sunday, October 31st. The next 2 steps, we'll go over those next week, but it's basically the same as what we're already doing for the first part. You're going to get feedback, and then you're going to submit a final version of everything put together. Okay, so we'll go ahead and download those assignment guidelines, and we're just going to look at the response part of that. Okay, so scrolling down a little bit. Okay, so last week we just talked about the summary part, what you should consider when writing the summary of your article. This time you're going to be writing the evaluation or the analysis. Okay, so some questions you can ask yourself are, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of specific arguments or moments in the article? Mark any passages that seem to be really insightful, persuasive, problematic. Maybe write some notes that justify your assessment. Okay, after you look at the details of the article, take a step back and think about how you'd evaluate the article as a whole. So if it has some weaknesses, is it persuasive overall? Maybe the article has some intriguing points but lacks evidence or has an unconvincing analysis. So you're discussing the strengths or weakness of the article from your own point of view. If you feel like you want to include another outside source, or you need to because you're bringing in an extra idea that you think supports your analysis, or maybe you're mentioning a statistic that you think is going to add something else that will convince your readers, you can do that, but just make sure you cite that source. They're not required, but just make sure that you cite any sources that you do plan to use outside the single article that you're evaluating. Okay, so as we see here in the organization, you should already have an introduction and a thesis statement. You should already have your summary. And so in 3 and 4, you're working on the evaluation, analysis, and the conclusion. Okay, so as it tells you here, the evaluation or analysis portion of your paper should engage closely with a few specific points or passages in the essay, should make persuasive evaluative claims about these passages. So you could explain what makes a particular argument persuasive, or why a word or phrase does not work to clarify an argument. In your conclusion, you're giving kind of the bird's eye view of your article. an overall evaluation. So if you found the essay's arguments problematic, what do you think the author could have done differently to make it more persuasive? If you thought the article was persuasive and insightful, what made it that way overall? Who would benefit from reading that article? Okay, as you worked on last week, remember you've got that sample critical response essay in assignment 6.3 as a model that you can go back and look at if you want to see how that writer handled their evaluation or analysis. And I think that's pretty much everything to talk about from the assignment guidelines. You've got all your due dates in the course calendar, so you know this part is going to be due on the 31st. It should be 2 to 3 pages, the part that you're adding to your critical response essay. In total, the final version, which you'll submit on Sunday, November 7th. And as you'll see from the course calendar, that's the only assignment you have due next week. So that'll give you plenty of time to work on that. Let's go back over here. Okay, so you'll be submitting that on Sunday, November 7th, and that final version will be 3 to 4 pages. Okay, so those are your 2 assignments for this week. You're finishing the final version of your critical response essay. You'll be submitting, or not the final version, part 2, I should say. You're finishing part 2 of your critical response essay. You're going to submit that here, the kind of the middle link in Module 6. And in Module 7, you're starting your first assignment, which is 7.1, and you will submit your work right here at the 7.1 link. So that's everything for this week. I hope everything goes well. If you have questions, concerns, as always, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help and answer questions. Have a great week. Bye-bye.